Hello and welcome to the Appleby Hour. I'm Appleby, and today I'd like to talk about transportation. Now, we are going to be engaging in a little bit of a utopianism here. We're going to basically sweep geopolitics under the rug and imagine what ideally would our transportation landscape look like. Now, I live in the United States, and cars are the dominant form of transportation. It's not the most efficient way to do things. It's not, there are plenty of downsides. It's pretty absurd, actually. And the only reason that we do it this way is because of car companies lobbying the government, basically just legalized bribery, um, so that the laws will favor the car companies. It's a self perpetuating cycle. And because of this, a lot of people on the left, and this is sort of the impetus for making this video, they are very anti-car. They want to ban cars. Um, I think this is a very sort of metropolitan kind of city slicker way of thinking about things. I am from Wyoming. I'm a Wyomingite in the flesh. I'm not. I am not, in fact, a hallucination. We exist. I know you don't believe me. It's true. Um, but anyway, uh, to me, people, the right, they point out, and I think Jordan Peterson said this once, that cars are like fundamental, that it's sort of a right, which is a bit hyperbolic, a bit absurd. But, rights are what we make them, and maybe it should be. I firmly believe that access to the internet should be made a right. It's impossible to participate in the culture and in most places to even get a job if you don't have an internet connection. And the thing that gets taken away, like say that those metropolitan liberal types got their way and cars were plucked from the American experience, something essential would be lost, in my opinion. It's you know I've heard it said that because I am expressing this idea now that cars are a freeing thing, and I've heard pushback against that. It's like, well, no, because you would your commute would be so much faster if you just had public transportation. That's true. It's just a weight around your neck. These repairs, the gas. A car is an expensive thing. That's also true. Um, they point out all the downsides of cars, but there's one upside that just absolutely cannot be ignored when it comes to personal vehicles. They can take you wherever you want to go, you know, especially if you have an off roader. And like, as someone from Wyoming, I can't ignore that. And anyone telling me that it's a marginal thing, it's like, no, not where I'm from. Absolutely not. you know, uh, like you can never wire Wyoming together with trains. There's just not enough people to justify. Even if you could, I wouldn't advocate it because we should be getting rid of some of these small towns and consolidating them into larger communities, you know? But I also think that there's a place for rural living, and the only way that you're going to be able to get out to the middle of nowhere to get to your place is in a car. Now, so I am in defense of personal uh, transportation. I'm not attached to the combustion engine. I don't have any sort of loyalty to that. We can electrify them, but I do think that cars have a place. They need to stick around because it is liberating despite all of its drawbacks. If you can afford a car, it's nice to have one. Okay. So, but let's talk about that public transportation because I don't want it to seem as though I am against public transportation. I'm absolutely not. I want more buses. I want subways, and I want high-speed rail connecting the entire United States. In fact, let's zoom out of the United States now that we're done talking about cars. I want high-speed rail that connects the entirety of the world, essentially. You know, you could. It is possible. It is possible to connect the old and the new world through the. I'm blanking on the. I'm blanking on the name of the strait, but there's a few islands bridging that we could use to bridge Alaska and Russia, and then you could take a train from Miami to London. You know, that would be quite the train ride. But with high speed rail, you could do that trip in under a day. And from there, like you could go from Patagonia to South Africa. That's a crazy trip, but it's possible. And so this is why I said we're sort of sweeping geopolitics under the rug, because obviously that would be very difficult to pull off. I don't think impossible, and I do advocate for especially the Americas and the global North to unite. The West broadly needs to consolidate and take as many people in as it possibly can, because the global South, well, and not even the global South, everything that's non-Western, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, they need to essentially be evacuated. Yeah, I mean, not entirely. Like I've said in my other climate videos, it's everywhere people will adapt and everywhere people will move. And but what is clear is that those areas are going to be, the populations will leave. There will be a depopulation that goes on in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. And they need to move to the temperate regions because the tropics are going to get way too hot. The subtropics are going to dry out. The temperate region's where you want to be. The Arctic region is transforming radically. There'll be opportunity there, but that'll be like the new, Wild West. So you can, that's good too, but it's a little bit more unstable. The ground is exploding up there. No joke. It's methane pockets, boom, from permafrost. But anyway. So I do think it's totally possible to have a global high-speed rail network. And obviously I think that's desirable. And if we were to have that, we could cut down on air traffic, because planes are just not that efficient. They just don't make a whole lot of sense. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist at all. I do think that we need to make them cleaner. We do need to make them hopefully one day electric with revolutions in battery technology. But in the meantime, they need to be heavily reduced and heavily taxed. And a global rail network would be the best solution to that problem. My hometown's motto is actually where the tracks end and the trails begin. And it was because at one time that was the end of the line for trains moving west in that area. And I don't know, it's so strange to me that when you look back at American history, we used to be the leader in rail, and now we have fallen so far behind it's not even funny. I mean, you look at our trains, they are rickety pieces of shit. They're awful, and they're constantly derailing and chemical spills all the time. But anyway, back to air traffic. So, like I said, planes, air travel with aeroplanes needs to be heavily taxed. It's not efficient. It's not environmentally friendly. It's not sustainable. At least not right now. Maybe that will change, but right now trains are the better option. But I also don't think that air travel needs to be totally eliminated. Helium dirigibles, blimps and zeppelins, they're fine. Expensive, but fine. And honestly, I think that we could do that as a sort of a government subsidized. That could be public transportation, the public option for air travel. And obviously, that's going to be slower than a plane, probably even slower than a high speed train. But if you're looking for air travel, I think that that's a reasonable solution. And if you use helium, helium doesn't explode like hydrogen does. So I guess that's it for we kind of covered land, air, time to do sea. Okay, boats are not going anywhere. They're the most efficient way to transport goods. Period. There's just if you want to move a whole lot of shit around, floating it on water is the easiest way. That's not going to change anytime soon. What we need to do is electrify, electrify, electrify. I think there's something to be said for the fact that aircraft carriers run on nuclear reactors and that those don't usually pose a problem. I think that shipping containers could also do so. It would limit their ability to move through canals, but honestly, with the Arctic melting and that the Arctic Ocean opening up for sea travel, that becomes less of a concern because both the Panama and the Suez, they they're both kind of irrelevant once the Arctic Ocean is available. Yeah, it just makes more sense to use that. Now, it's not always true. There's still going to be times where those canals are going to be preferable, but the vast majority of global trade is just going to shift north into the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean is the future of geopolitics, which is another reason I this is kind of letting my global north must unite agenda is creeping into this one. But that's another reason why that's a good idea. you know, uh, Land, air, and sea travel all established. All you can freely travel to all the countries that border the Arctic Circle, and further down into the temperate band. I think that would be a desirable. I would want to live in that society. That sounds nice. But all right, personal transportation, like, and not in a vehicle, right? So we're talking about bikes, we're talking about walking, skateboarding, blah blah blah, scooters. These electric disposable scooters, something needs to be done about those because those are just becoming more and more of a problem. I think if you're going to have an electric vehicle like that, a small personal electric vehicle, that you need to take care of that yourself. That should be a private thing. I don't think that a company should just have them laying about. Or maybe it could be a public program. I could see that. But then the state would have to maintain it, and we would have to maintain funding for it. So I think it's better just to steer clear of those. But human-powered vehicles, like I said, bikes, skateboards, regular scooters, all great. They're all great options. But what I'd like to talk a little bit more about is infrastructure, because I'm a big proponent of interior urbanism. I'm talking about skyways that are, bridges between skyscrapers. I think basically that what we need to do, and I've advocated this before as well, is that we need to sort of build our cities more like hives, more interconnectedness, more horizontal levels vertically, so that things are stacked on top of each other. Now, obviously, that we need to manage this carefully to ensure that that people are comfortable and there's enough sunlight. It takes competent engineering, but we know that it's possible. I'm no fan of weird dictatorships, but you have to hand it to Singapore. What they've been able to accomplish is quite impressive. Their urban planning is wonderful, and I would like to take it like 12 steps further. I think that it is possible to maintain a sort of an individualist modularity inside of a larger planned structure. That gives you the best of both worlds. I think that you should be able to basically get everything you need within 15 minutes walking distance of your house. The whole 15-minute cities. Now, this is another thing that Jordan Peterson has said, is that, like, you're not going to be able to to go anywhere further than you can walk 15 feet by foot. They're trying to confine you. It's like, no, no. It's just about convenience. Like, it's a more stimulating, more interconnected community if you are buying your food from the bakery down the street and the grocer 2 levels up, than it is if you're driving downtown to go to the supermarket and pick everything up there. You know, it's about fostering a sort of small businesses, especially. I really hate these giant mega corporations. I think that we can reduce those in an urban setting, and that would encourage people to be more active in the community, more foot traffic. I also think more parks are in order. Wildlife is an important thing. I've been thinking a lot about how we could incorporate wildlife into a city. And, I have some ideas there, but right now I'm just going to leave it at that. That the wilderness needs to, like, if you take a plot of land as it is and you're like, I'm going to put a city there, like Charter City, let's say. I think that when that city is built up, the biodiversity, the biomass of that plot of land should exponentially increase as the city grows. The city should be something which causes the natural world around it, the environment that it's in, to flourish. The city should be a Garden of Eden, you know? And I think that's entirely possible. And one more thing on wildlife, and then I'll be done, is with our existing highways. I'd like to cut down, and I'd like to invest in some longer lasting highways, and get trucks off of them, because trucks are a lot of semis hauling goods is a lot of the reason why roads deteriorate in the first place. Like, put that shit onto trains. We'll still need in the city last mile delivery, to get it to stores. But whatever, the highways don't need to be worn out by those things. They're enough of an investment as it is. So, but the highways that do exist after we've pruned a few of them, wildlife overpasses. It's a really simple concept. You map out migration patterns, and where the animals naturally migrate, you build an overpass that looks like natural environment, almost like they're just walking over a hill. And in areas where this has been tried, I think there's one in Wyoming, there's a couple in the States, but mostly it's been done in Canada. And in Canada, it's reduced the number of animal collisions drastically. So that's my last little bit on wildlife and transportation. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I can expand on all these ideas, but that's what I got. Love to know what you have to say, and share it around. YouTube's not gonna. Thank you for watching.